Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Miha and welcome to the channel. In today's video, we will explore agentic AI. Now, most of us interact with AI through chatbots. We enter a prompt and we get a response. For example, we may ask AI to help us summarize a document or generate an image. We then take that output and decide what to do with it. Agentic AI allows you to design an entire workflow process. So you tell AI what to do, how to do it step by step, and then it does all of that on its own. In other words, AI doesn't just give you an answer, but it can actually take actions on your behalf. Now, if you tried to do this about a year ago, you needed quite a bit of technical knowledge and a lot of coding was involved to pull this off successfully. Today, however, there are plenty of tools in the market that make this far more accessible because they require little to no coding and technical background. All of these tools are designed for slightly different use cases and they have different price entry points. So it's worth doing a little bit of research before you fully commit to any one of their ecosystems. For our demo today, I chose a tool called n8n. I chose this because it has a great visual interface, it's beginner friendly, requires minimal to no coding, and therefore I think it's great for the kind of demonstration that we will do today. Now, for the purposes of this demo, we will pretend that we work in sales in an organization. And let's imagine that we get three types of emails. One, we get email questions about sales, which is important for us and ones that we can answer. Two, we might get emails with financial concerns, perhaps a billing or an invoice question. And that should be directed to our website where a client fills out a form and then somebody from the finance team will contact them. And in a third scenario, we might get a technical question where a client reaches out because something is wrong with the product. And in that case, we have to route that to the technical department where Bob and his IT team can then solve the problem for the client. Now, without automation, we would have to read every one of these emails and then decide whether we should respond to it, whether we direct the client to the website, or whether we send it to IT. Our workflow will do all of this for us. Welcome to the lab. Let's get started. To find n8n, you can search for it on Google, or you can go directly to n8n.io. And this is their webpage. What you want to do is click on Get Started and sign up. A company email, you can use whatever email you want. And then you just want to complete the setup process as you would with most other online services. You can add more collaborators. We'll just skip this step for now, since it's just me using it. They've got a quick start if you want to watch the video. There's also a lot of good tutorials on their website. You can find those on your own. You can also find very extensive guides that walk you through many different elements, but I'll leave those for now. We'll just focus on doing something very simple. So what we're going to do is build a workflow. And we're going to build it with AI. Again, the goal of this video is to make this as accessible, as simple as possible. We'll build it with AI, and you can always add more steps in later. So I will click on Build with AI, and we're going to tell their AI bot what we want to do. You can find the prompt that I'm about to use in the video description below, but we're basically outlining what I told you earlier, that we work in sales and we will be filtering emails. So here's the prompt that we will use. We are going to monitor a Gmail inbox. We will classify emails either as sales, finance, or tech support. If it's a sales inquiry, we leave it as is because that's for us. So we don't want AI to do anything with those. If it's related to finance, billing, invoicing, etc., then we want to draft a message, but we don't want to send it yet because this is going to an external customer. We probably want to read it first. And so here's a draft email. Thank you for contacting us. We appreciate your question. Go to our website, fill out our survey, and somebody will contact you. If it's a technical support issue, then it should automatically be sent to Bob and IT with the following message. Hi, Bob, we received the attached customer email. Please assist the customer. Thank you. And we're asking you to build a complete workflow and all the required nodes. We're just going to enter it. And the tool is now building our workflow for us based on our prompt. It will periodically stop and ask us questions, and we'll address those as they come up because the model will probably need some additional clarification from us, including access to our email. Here it outlines what it's going to do. It says it's going to check our inbox. Two, it will classify emails as sales, finance, or tech support. It will then take the appropriate action with the emails, and let's do implement the plan. So this is our ability to make sure that everything was understood correctly. All right, and there is our workflow. So let's go through it step by step. First thing it says is it needs to get access to our email. Now you can use authenticators and you can Google how to do this online, or if you want, you can just sign in with your Google email. That's what I'm going to do here just for testing purposes. So I will actually sign in with the Gmail address I created for this exercise. I've signed in and I've given n8n access to my inbox. Please be aware that when you're doing this, you are giving an external tool, in this case n8n, access to read, draft, and send your emails. So first step has been done. So that's completed. Now what we can do is we can do a fetch test event. In other words, we're gonna test the workflow just to see what happens. It's waiting for an email. All right, we got a check mark. That means the email was correctly read. Now it's got to the next item, which is classified. This is when AI decides, is this an email for us in sales? Is it a financial question or is it a tech support question? And here you see this red exclamation mark. This means, well, we need credentials. We can either set up credentials on our own or we can use the model that comes with our free 14-day trial. We'll click set up credentials and we're going to claim our free tokens. We're going to execute step. So now we're going to make sure that it's using AI, how it did. But now it says there's a classification error. So if we click this open node, it will show us what the error is. Now, without coding knowledge, it might be a bit difficult to understand what is going on here. In this case, it's telling us that open object is not a valid JSON, and you can actually ask their AI for help. So here's a solution. And if this still seems not understandable, again, just put it into another AI model and see what it says that you should do. So I just took a screenshot of the error that we saw, and ChatGPT is going to tell me what the solution is. It says, try this. All right, let's just copy this. And we are going to paste it in here. So we'll overwrite what's in here. And the issue is now solved and the workflow executed. You can see check marks throughout. Again, this is why I think this tool is a great entry point. You do not need coding knowledge. You can ask n8n, or you can just ask ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, whatever you prefer to use, what the solution is. The kind of code that fixed this is actually pretty simple, but you don't need to know anything to make it work. And this, I think, is what makes this tool so accessible. All right, now let's test it. If this is correct, and we send an email to this email address and execute the workflow, we should see an email being drafted or an email being sent or an email being ignored if it's for sales. So let's test this out. But first, let's check one more thing. Where is the email for Bob actually going? So right now we see that it's going to bob@company.com. Now this email doesn't exist. So what I will do is I will use the email address that I use for this channel just so that we can see this email to Bob being sent somewhere. Otherwise, it will simply bounce because this address does not exist. All right, so we'll pretend that Bob is using my YouTube email address. There we go. First, let's send an email that is about sales. In this case, it should not do anything. So here we go. All right, pretty direct. So here's the first one. Next, let's write another email. Write one about invoicing. Stephen. All right, so this is a financial issue. So here we should just see a draft. And then finally, let's do a technical issue. All right, so all these emails have been sent. We can execute the workflow. Again, these workflows are running periodically, but by executing, we don't have to wait. All right, it says everything was done successfully. Now let's see what happens. So if we go to our inbox, first of all, we have our purchase question. I would like to buy your product. Please give me more details. No actions taken. Perfect, right? We don't want to see actions here because we said if it's a sales question, do nothing. It's for my team. This is an invoice question. Here we said draft it, but don't send it. And here is the draft. Thank you for contacting. Please complete our perfect. There you go. Now we can hit send if we're okay with it. And then here we've got a broken product. And here is the email, and it was sent to Bob. And if we check our email, it was sent to Bob. Our workflow did exactly what it wanted to do. This whole process took about 10 minutes to do, even with a little bit of tinkering. And again, if you get stuck, just ask ChatGPT, Claude, or Gemini. It will probably tell you exactly what to do, exactly what to copy paste if you do end up with an issue. Now, just because we can automate workflows, should we automate them? Now, that's a somewhat different question. There are three things I recommend you keep in mind if you are considering automating your workflows. First, think about the cybersecurity implications here. If your agents are doing things automatically, getting data from the web or from email, it is possible for somebody to inject malicious code into your agentic workflow. This is called prompt injection, and it has already caused a few headaches in the industry. It's also worth thinking about where this data is stored. If you're using Google Sheets, for example, or external databases, this data may be sent to cloud servers. It may be stored somewhere away from your organization. And that also introduces potential cybersecurity implications, especially if you're dealing with very sensitive data. So if you're in education or healthcare, for example, you might want to think very carefully whether or not you should use these tools and how these tools are manipulating the data itself. And so I highly recommend having a look at the legal and policy frameworks that regulate your work. What does your governance say about data? What does your government say about AI use? And what are the acceptable types of data risks that you can take given the organization in which you work? The second thing to keep in mind is cost. Now, the workflow that we built today is pretty simple, and so the cost will probably be negligible. But if you build a very complex agentic AI workflow and then you scale it across your whole team or maybe across your whole organization, your costs could increase very quickly. So it's worth keeping a close eye on the fee structure and how much you are actually using these tools. Both of these two concerns, so the cybersecurity and the cost, you can mitigate somewhat by running these tools locally. N8n actually offers a platform where you can download these tools and run them locally. And if you combine this, say, with LM Studio, you can actually run the AI models locally, so you don't have to rely on ChatGPT like we did in our demo. In this case, your data, for the most part, stays local. Your AI model is local. And so your costs and your security implications will probably be somewhat mitigated. However, not completely. Right? You still have to think about the processing power to be able to run LM Studio. And so you probably have to invest in some type of hardware to do that. And then two, even if this is run locally, if you're sending this data, say, to Google Sheets, it is still going into the cloud. So even if you run it locally, keep in mind that you have mitigated some of the security implications, but not all of them. And then the third thing I want to encourage you to keep in mind is the decision-making process itself. It's very important that we keep the human in the loop. Now, human in the loop does not mean that you design a workflow and AI agents execute a series of things and then somebody checks it at the end. That is not human in the loop. That's a human just as final quality control. To stay in the loop, we have to have oversight of the entire process. And this is important because if an error occurs in the beginning, let's say with the sorting of the email, and then AI agents perform a whole series of tasks, it might become much harder to catch the error at the very end. And it's possible that the error has compounded itself and caused all kinds of issues through multiple workflows in your organization. So if you do decide to pursue this type of automation, remember to ask yourselves not just, can we do this, but should we do it? Are you and your organization willing to take on the additional risk? And if so, what steps can you take to mitigate some of those risks? These are important questions to ask because the ultimate responsibility will fall on us as users. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed the content. If you did, consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing to the channel, and I'll see you next time.